welcome to the Country Telegraph. Nice to have your company. It's a Tuesday. Another 3 days to go, and we're loving it. We're absolutely loving it, to say the least. Before we get into our guest and our program today, let's have a look at what's happening around Australia. South Australia's state Liberals will introduce legislation to repeal the First Nations voice when Parliament in South Australia resumes this week. Hello. The First Nations Voice Repeal Bill will make way for its replacement. Practical, targeted support for Indigenous South Australians and a revived Aboriginal Lands Committee, which I think it won't go through in South Australia. It's just not going to go through. Anyway, good on them for trying. I think it's a great idea, but I think we're all swept up by the wokeness, aren't we? The Victorian Fisheries Authority has identified fenced Wimmera storages in which to trial the release of exotic carp koi herpes virus. 12 national organisations are calling for immediate reform to Medicare and pharmaceutical policy settings that are delaying diagnosis, fragmenting care and driving avoidable hospital admissions in the bush. Central Murray clubs in the Football League there, pushing for a rethink on the expanded 16-team league, have locked in another meeting with AFL Victoria. And I think we need to support bush footy beyond all belief. Don't forget to subscribe to the Country Telegraph on YouTube and Rumble, also on BitChute too. And follow us on Facebook and X.
Imagine government agents arriving at a peaceful private property accompanied by heavily armed police officers. They force their way in against the owner's will. Their mission? To spread chemical poisons. The target? An ant that isn't even there.
And they turned up on my property with 2 police officers and 2 biosecurity officers.
This isn't happening in some remote authoritarian country. It's happening right now in southeast Queensland. And it's being carried out in the name of protecting the community. Over $1.2 billion of taxpayer money has been allocated to the National Fire Ant Eradication Program. The program claims it's attempting the largest fire ant eradication effort ever undertaken in the world. Yet after more than 2 decades, the ants continue to spread. The area now infested spans over 850,000 hectares. But some things don't add up, and thousands of Queenslanders are demanding answers. One would think that the failure of the same approach in the US 82 years ago, finishing in 1975, should have saved us all this money and public suffering. In the first 18 years in the US, more than 182 million kilograms of poison baits were distributed over hundreds of millions of hectares.
The results were disastrous. The poisons were indiscriminate, killing honeybees, birds, cattle, marine life, fire ants, all ants. Worse yet, with all competitors wiped out of an area, the prolific fire ant soon moved back in and dominated.
The red imported fire ant was first detected at the Port of Brisbane in 2001. But according to the program's website, the ants may have arrived up to 20 years earlier. That means these insects have been in Australia for potentially 45 years. The justification for the massive eradication effort comes from computer models prepared in 2002 and 2016. These models predicted catastrophic consequences by 2030. Annual costs of $2 billion, 140,000 medical consultations, and 3,000 anaphylactic reactions each year from fire ant stings. There's just one problem. These predictions are based on United States data and conditions. After 45 years of fire ants in Australia, where is the evidence that these frightening predictions have any basis in reality? The only Australian hospitalisation data available groups fire ants with other ants accounting for just 3.7% of hospitalisations from ants, ticks and caterpillars. Compare this with ticks at 30% and jumper and bull ants at 26%. The risk appears to have been grossly exaggerated. This table shows the relative sting intensity from some insects. It shows Schmidt pain index numbers. The fire ant sting certainly causes pain and discomfort, but as can be seen, it rates lower than green ants, bull ants, bees and wasps. Multiple stings are clearly more severe. Here's where the story becomes truly bizarre. The program's approach is to spread chemical baits across vast areas of southeast Queensland, regardless of whether fire ants are present. In fact, most of the land being treated has no fire ants. The method works like this. When a fire ant nest is found, program officers mark a 5-kilometre radius around it. That single nest can trigger the expansion of the eradication zone for chemical baiting, sometimes by helicopter, by up to 78 square kilometres of surrounding land. This is done as a preventative measure because mating pair fire ants can fly up to 5 kilometres. But there's a critical flaw in this logic. Fire ant baits aren't like rat baits in waterproof containers that last for months. Fire ant baits break down in the presence of moisture within a day or two. They contain growth inhibitor chemicals, not poison that kills live ants. The chemicals inhibit larval development. This means the baits can only work if fire ants are actually present to collect them within that narrow window. If there are no fire ants on the land when the baits are dropped, which is the case for most areas being treated, the baits cannot eradicate fire ants. So for each fire ant nest found, up to 78 square kilometres of pristine ecosystems are being unnecessarily exposed to chemicals. Other insects, birds, bees, animals and aquatic life either eat the baits directly or are exposed when the chemicals wash into waterways and groundwater.
So there you are. It's a very serious problem, which is exasperated by, I think, government. Well, you watch, we'll get some hate mail again. Keep it away. Sarah McGuire is a Samford Valley resident accountant, piano teacher, who became a public spokesperson on fire ant policy after aerial pesticide spraying was carried out over her community, including areas without confirmed fire ant activity. She helped commission independent water testing that led to regulatory action for environmental breaches and has since advocated for lawful, evidence-based fire ant management that respects environmental safeguards, property rights and public accountability. Sarah is the founder of Fire Ant Treatment Alternatives, and through this work, she has highlighted expert concerns about the scientific feasibility of eradication under current blanket treatment methods. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the show.
We played that video, and it's on Rumble, by the way, and also just by going to your website. If I said I felt like I was living in Alice in Wonderland, but with, instead of some nice people in the background, they're all Chuckies out of a Stephen King novel, would I be far from the truth at the moment?
The whole thing is just, quite frankly, a bit of a joke. We have not ever seen any evidence that eradication has taken place in any shape or form. Even the program itself admits that it may have even slowed down the spread, but there's no evidence really based on Australian data that they are, making any difference with the fire ants. In fact, we now have peer-reviewed science showing that the broad scale baiting that they're doing is actually causing more harm than good. And we've just asked consistently from the beginning, where are the comprehensive environmental risk assessments, and there's been none done to date. So this whole thing is just based on modelling and predictions, and it's using up huge over $1 billion now of our taxpayers' money onto a program that actually hasn't even contained the ants in southeast Queensland. They're just spreading on an annual basis.
Yeah, we get the independent news around Australia, when I say independent, run by the corporates. Weekly Times, its headlines say, and this is the headlines: independent review confirms Australia's fire ant eradication is on track. Not forgetting this is a children's program, maybe not, maybe. What's your thoughts on that headline?
Well, the first thing, it's overly optimistic, and even the report itself, I made some notes from the report. The review gives the program an amber rating, which in government terms means there are significant issues and risks to delivery. So that's in the report on page 5 of the report. And then it goes on to say that treatment targets are lagging. There's limited ability to access whether eradication is being achieved. I mean, the whole that report is, it's not very positive in my opinion. And even they did a 2021 strategic review, and that showed even back then that they needed $200 to $300,000 $200 to $300 million a year to run a program, and that was when the ants were only on 750,000 hectares. These ants are now on over 1.2 billion hectares of land in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, and they've only got 153 million a year till 2027. So I mean, even by their own admission, they don't have the right amount of funding. But I think you could give it $1 billion a year in funding and you'll never eradicate fire ants from Australia, because no country has ever managed to eradicate ants once they go over 10,000 hectares, and we're now talking 1.2 billion hectares. So it's the report isn't very positive in my opinion.
Tell me, how do we? Okay, to fight government's really scary, because they're just like this great lump of lard that just rolls over you. How do we fight this great lump of lard? I don't know if anyone's ever used that as reference to government before, but that's what it reminds me of. These people that sit in their offices have got no idea. Go by reports that are dated and wrong anyway, scientifically incorrect. How do we make an impact? Because the video was magnificent. We've spoken to Trevor Hold. We've spoken to yourself and others, and they, all fighting the good fight. But it's just not going to budge. How do we do something? Because once you destroy the environment, it's very hard to bring it back, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I set up the group Fire Ant Treatment Alternatives, because we're trying to educate people on, how we deal with fire ants, because there is a big fear around these ants. I mean, the government's done a great job of fear campaigns, telling people these ants are going to, come for you, they're coming for your family, they're coming for your dog, and it's so people are actually scared of these ants, so they're saying just do anything, get rid of the ants. But there are practical measures on how you can deal with ants. There's safer alternatives, subterranean bait stations to avoid broad scale poisoning of land and soil, and so that they don't affect non-target species, because at the moment they're dropping these baits over pristine rainforests and forests here in Samford, and there's not even a fire ant in sight. So the only animals consuming those baits are native insects and animals, and then it goes up the food chain. We need to educate the public that fire ants don't need to be this big scary thing that's going to kill you and your babies, because even they're modelling based on how many people would die from fire ants. I mean, you've got bigger chance of dying from a honeybee sting. 75 people on average in the US die from bee stings, whereas, I mean, in 100 years, they've had they're saying 80 cases of people dying, but even then the numbers are more like 30 people that were confirmed, and that's in 100 years. You've got more chance of being struck by lightning. So we're trying to, de-escalate the fear around fire ants and educate people that they're not scary. They're on the Schmidt pain scale rating, as you saw in the film. They're actually a lot lower than a green ant and a bee sting. So, and we're also trying to say to people, look, if you realize having somebody come into your garden and bait your entire garden and poison your garden when you have no fire ants, that is not doing any good to this program. It's actually not helping. So, but if people start to say no and question the program won't be able to keep doing what it's doing and spending the money it's spending. Because if the public are aware that what they're doing isn't working and people are starting to push back and say, no, we don't want this, then they'll have to reassess what they're doing. Because we're just asking for safer alternatives. And in terms of managing fire ants in areas where there are infestations, we've got the fire ant the soup operations, hot water machines. So there's lots of different things. So education is key.
What about have you been approached by government, or have you approached them, and how was their reaction to you?
Well, in the beginning, I thought, I had all the data and the figures that showed, it wasn't working from what we could see just with their own figures. I then also, like you say, caught them dumping it from the helicopters into our waterways here in Samford. We caught them putting it into our main river, as well as a creek that was with running water. And when we reported that, they did get into some trouble, and they did try to address some of my questions, but it took them a year to respond to 32 questions I gave to the program. It took them a whole year. And then they've sort of gaslit me now and said they won't answer any more of my questions because I keep asking the same thing, but they don't answer what I'm asking, like, where are the environmental risk assessments? Where's the proof that what you're doing is working? And they don't answer any of my questions. And then what they did was, I did a public speaking event almost 2 years ago, and they got an ABC reporter to write an article on me, and it completely misquoted anything I said. It misrepresented me entirely, and called me a conspiracy theorist and tried to defame me, really. And so they've now sort of, it's very hard to then start engaging when they've already labelled me unfairly.
Yeah, I think it's reminds me a bit of what we have just recently. That's right, COVID. Anyway, it's again, government, like this great lump of lard, is rolling over the top of anything that's healthy, and it's doing the same thing at the moment, which is very, very sad. If somebody wanted to find out more, and two parts to this. If someone wants to find out more, and what can we do? How do they do all those things? Do we have placards and stand outside Parliament House, or do we write hate emails to politicians, or do we sit there and drown our sorrows, or what do we do?
I think people do need to write and express their concerns, because the more people that write, I mean, we've already tabled a couple of petitions, a federal one and a state one, but that sort of went nowhere. So I do have the website. I've got a new website. It's called treatfireants.org, because we're not telling people don't deal with fire ants, but the messaging is there's a better way. And if people go to the government and say, look, we want to kind of work with government on dealing with fire ants, but there is a better way than what you're doing, because accessing people's properties without their consent, dropping tons of poisons out of the sky from helicopters over heavily forested areas where fire ants don't even live, all those things are ineffective. And like I said, you'll see from Professor Nigel Andrews' study that it's making things worse, because it's killing our natural predators that would be would potentially fight with the fire ants, whereas So yeah, people just need to get educated, watch the documentaries. They're very informative. We've got the GoFundMe campaign that we're using to support people that were arrested. And I don't know if you know, but a couple of weeks ago, one of the ladies that got arrested, it went to court and all charges were dismissed. And we helped fund her legal representation for that. We've got Trevor Hold. He was arrested for obstructing, and that's going to court next week, that we will be following very closely. And like, we're supporting those people financially with their legal costs. So, and also, you know, put up a sign. We're selling signs, no trespass signs, no poison zone signs, stand with me signs. So anyone that lives on main roads, we'd love you to put up a sign saying that, you know, the fire ant program is toxic and it is causing harm to our environment, our waterways, our livestock and animals. So, you know, it's just the messaging. We just need more people to know about it.
Yeah, I saw that photo of Trevor. I think it was on your website or Facebook or something anyway. Truly, for those that have watched War of the Worlds, it looks like it's from that. It's a monstrosity. It's a giant machine, but it works, and it does no damage to the environment. So perhaps maybe government could go, "Hi Sarah, we'd like to talk to you about this sort of stuff." They won't do it. I think they're so pig-headed. This lump of lard called government is just not going to budge at the moment. And the way to change things is to persist and be strong. Sarah McGuire, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Thank you.
Welcome to the River Country Art Trail and a journey through the traditional lands of the Yorta Yorta and Barappa Barappa nations. Linking 5 historic townships, these murals and sculpture celebrate the mighty Murray, its people, wildlife and stories.
I'm Antonio Segura, my artistic name is Dog, and I'm from Spain. The process of creating this artwork has been very inspiring. I really like when the project's based in nature and a species from the place where I'm painting. So the message of this piece is about the treasure of nature, the treasures that you have here. So most of the characters that I paint are threatened. I like to show it not in a critical way, more in a fairy tale way. I'm surrounded by the things that I'm painting, and it's when my art makes sense.
My name is Hiroyasu Tsuri, also known as Turban, originally from Japan. Public murals always start with field research. Some people told me the story of blue crane. I stemmed the idea to have all the native birds flying towards the sun or moon to the sky. When I paint a public mural, I think the main message I want to convey is always positive energies. I wish that comes across talking about the heritage and original culture of this land.
Hi, my name is Gus Eagleton and we're here in Barham. This piece focuses on a lot of different things relating to Barham. There's an overall present-day community aspects. Every Anzac Day they have a march that goes over the bridge linking Koondrook to Barham. I want people to look at the piece and just be wowed by it and also enjoy it as a artwork. You know, looking further into the piece, you can then see different elements which relate to the town and the community. People can hopefully relate to the piece and recognise that it is a piece for Barham.
My name is Hisco. I'm a Mongolian Australian artist, or muralist, I guess. There's like 3 sections, so like there's nature, obviously the river, agriculture and farming. The 3rd section will be like the historical images. I'm painting this as a service to the community. That's always been kind of my angle in this kind of project, and yeah, like something for everyone, I suppose, The topics and the content and the subject needs to come from the community, I guess. And then my job is I have to make it look good. And it's, yeah, just good fun and adventure, you know, being up in the air and painting big stuff. It's just big and impressive.
Hi, I'm Stuart Green. I'm a public artist from Perth, Western Australia, here now in Toolabug. It's either the start or the end of the River Country Art Trail. It was pretty exciting, and I knew that the work needed to be quite monumental. It was trying to come up with a human figure that's the bounty of this place. That's the arm out offering the fruit of the land. The message that this work, I hope, conveys is one of welcome. Here we are, take part in it, celebrate it.
There's a world of endless colour waiting for us to discover.
Public art has a special power. It changes the landscape of the place.
It gives opportunity for the people who is normally not interested in art to encounter with it.
There's just another aspect of life that really enhances everyday living.
It changes environments, like, you know, I've seen it happen, and you see it, you know, like how much people appreciate it.
The good thing about public art that it's actually here for a long time.
And it brings richness for everybody.
Each artwork invites you to enjoy a different view of this beautiful region, connecting the riverside communities of Moama, Mathaura, Barham, Moolameen and Toolibug. The River Country Art Trail expresses the flow from many pasts into many presents, from people who've known and cared for these lands and waters for millennia, to those who came after, working as graziers and pastoralists, bringing paddle steamers, railways, bridges, and creating a legacy of domestic, civic, and industrial architecture. It's where you'll encounter the hospitality and warmth of today's communities and people, and the pride taken in welcoming visitors of all ages. Come and experience the art and the spirit of River Country. Proudly funded by the New South Wales Government through the Regional Tourism Activation Fund, delivered by Murray River Council in collaboration with Form, building a state of creativity. This story unfolds in River Country.
How fantastic. I have to say that was just absolutely magnificent, to say the least. Our next guest is videographer, the guy that shot that, Mitchell Barkman of Mitchell Barkman Videography in northwest Victoria. He's an Australian-based creator who frequently documents arts, community and commercial projects in the region. And a nice part of the world too, because I'm from Mildura originally. They kicked me out. Mitchell has documented significant art projects, including the River Country Art Trail in partnership with Form Building, a state of creativity, and the Murray River Council. I'm going to talk to Mitchell today about the River Country Art Trail, which is a series artworks creating an exciting outdoor gallery across the Murray River Council area. First of all, Mitchell, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
What a great piece of videography, by the way, I have to say.
I appreciate it. No, it was a very exciting project and a long time in the making.
How long did it take to make?
Well, I mean, because they had so many artists from all over the place, they had different towns be painted at different times. So by the time I was brought on, it was probably almost 2 years from the start to completion to the launch to create all the assets. And
did you write it all? And did you choose the music? Did you do the full production piece yourself?
Yeah, so it was all done in house. Obviously with Form, building state of creativity, and Murray River Council. They were sort of, you know, the clients I've been working with. But I mean, the main piece of it was to promote tourism for the art trail, and to celebrate, I suppose, what the towns have there now, because obviously it's quite a community-driven project. So before I was even brought on to document the actual process, because it's quite an interesting process, and each artist operates a little bit differently as well. Before I was even brought on, they had a lot of community consultation as to what they wanted on display and what sort of what each piece meant for the town.
It's fantastic. How's the response been from the locals?
Oh, the response has been good. Look, people have been really excited. Public art it's always a funny thing because people will compare it to other pieces of arts in other towns. What I think is great about the River Country Art Show is each one is quite different artistically. And, one piece of art may not be for everyone. But the thing about it is it's there to stay, and it's especially public art. It's something that will grow with the town, so even if some people prefer one in a different town, the piece that belongs to their town, it'll grow with the place. I'm betting, in 20, 30 years time, they won't want to get rid of it. Because it'll just feel part of the place.
Do we see another series coming out? Because this one goes just under 6 minutes. You said 6 minutes and 1 second, actually goes for 5 minutes and 50. But do you see other? Because there's so much on offering in that part of the world. And I mentioned Mildura before, and I said I was probably down. Part of that could be true. Who knows? But you're in our part of the woods, and it's a unique part of the world, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, no, really beautiful area and nice communities all the way through, all connected.
And just the history, I would imagine there are other projects looking at the influence of immigration in the 60s or 50s, 60s and 70s. I don't know if you're in the town itself, but I lived on a block and we were surrounded by Italians and Greeks and Turks and all sorts. But the whole community, we were just this magnificent community. Sundays after church were very, very exciting because you could smell the bread cooking in these outdoor ovens. So there's other things you can do. Do you have anything planned for the future, or is it you're just going to enjoy the moment with this for a while and see which direction life will take you next?
I've always got multiple projects on the go. This was obviously a very exciting one to sort of to finish up and, I guess, release. There'll be more footage, I think, coming from this project to be used because obviously council will use it to boost tourism. The main goal, it's not just for the communities and giving, changing the spaces that they live in, but it's also for the tourists. Because, even when I was there documenting and interviewing the artists, we had people stopping by in caravans all the time, stopping, asking questions. That was really encouraging to see. And I think it will encourage people to, I guess, follow the trail and spend their money in these smaller communities that, don't necessarily have as many people going through them.
Tell us about some of the artists. Because they are very talented people. And maybe they could have picked a smaller thing to paint, but they are very talented people. Tell us about these artists and what inspires them, besides the area and I think that just the feeling you can get, it's sort of soulful. But there must be other things that would inspire these artists to excel in their greatness.
Yeah, they're amazing artists, and the artists that they had on this program. Travel all over the place to do big murals. This is what they specialize in, because obviously not everyone can do a large scale piece of work, especially on a water tower. So it's quite specialized in that regard, and going up high and getting the scale right when you're dealing with so many details. They've all got different techniques of how they do that. Moama Tuvan used a big extension pole so he could sort of stand back and see. They all had different methods, and they're of course all driven to make the best piece they could for the community. So it was quite a collaborative effort from what I could understand. I wasn't involved in that process, but I know a lot of the community that were, and they got to provide consultation and actually come and see the art as it got painted on, which was very exciting periods.
Can you tell me about what you do? Can I ask you how old you are? It's a bit rude, but I'm sort of jealous of you because you look very young, and you are a very talented person.
Thanks, Mark. No, I'm 28, but
28. What moisturiser do you use?
I've got a young face, but no, I've always been interested in filmmaking and telling stories, and so especially artistic projects like this, because it's quite positive, and everyone's excited, and it was a lot of fun to be involved with.
If somebody wants to find out more about what you do, how do they do that?
I mean, they can just look up my name, Mitchell Arkin Videography, online or on social media. It's not that original.
And the video itself, even though it goes for 5 minutes and 50 seconds, where they can go to YouTube and see that. Is it on the council website just yet?
Yes, the video will be on the council website. And it'll be they're gonna start putting up in a lot of their marketing material as well, to really promote people who are wanting to visit the area, to let them know that, hey, this River Art Trail exists. Why don't you drive through and have a look and take some photos, and so it's all about encouraging that.
It's all happening.
It's all happening.
Good on you. Thank you very much for your time, Mitchell. You are a talent, and I think what you've done for the area is just magnificent. It's something that, when you're gone, which in your case will be about 300 or 200 years' time, but when you've gone, though, it's in history. It's part of history. And they're going to look back and say, wow, they used to have cars there. And now we just fly around the place. But it's fantastic. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers. Take care.
Our mantra has always been, we are here to softly promote and softly build up all of the winemakers of the region to say, hang on, what you do is great, what you produce is fantastic, and what we drink is well worthy of anything, anywhere, not just in Australia but around the world.
I'm planting varieties from Cyprus, which is amazing, and looking at doing other Greek varietals too. So I think by doing this, it's really going to keep our culture strong here in Australia, because obviously we're very far away from Greece.
I then got the opportunity to make wines that I thought were suited to this region, and then put a little bit of finesse in, oak treatments, etc., to make them softer and more approachable wines.
It's pretty cool to be able to provide high value wines at those lower price points.
There's certainly quite a few of our varieties that you probably wouldn't find elsewhere in Australia. If you do, it's probably from our grapes.
A Riverland wine is above and beyond what you'll find anywhere else.
The whole objective was to be proud of the region we're from, so Riverland is stamped clearly on the bottle and always will be.
There's a lot of positivity amongst the smaller winemakers, passion and pride in what they're doing. They love to showcase the region. It's a wonderful region.
Yeah, I think, people will be pleasantly surprised by what they get out of Riverland.
Buy Australian made, and you're backing local jobs, a stronger economy, and the way we live right here. Australian made, made right here.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Nice to have your company. It's a Tuesday afternoon. It's 20 away from 5 on the eastern seaboard, and it's almost home time for many. Professor Nigel Andrew is an entomologist and is currently the Chair of Science at Southern Cross University. He's also a 2020 Fulbright Senior Scholar. His research investigates the responses of insects, native and introduced, pest and natural enemies to environmental extremes. Now, Nigel is currently a panel member of the Australian Research Council College of Experts. He is also Editor-in-Chief of Austral Ecology, Chair of the Holsworth Wildlife Research Endowment, and Vice President of the Entomological damn word again. Got it again, Nigel. Society of New South Wales, Entomological. We want to continue our discussion about the National Fire Ant Eradication Program and where we may be missing the mark on this issue. Nigel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Happy Tuesday afternoon.
Yes, you know, I think last time we spoke, I got that damn word. It's that one word, and I could say it just like that. Anyway, what's your views on the findings that especially in the bush telegraphs and all that sort of stuff, they're saying that the eradication is on track. Would that be a porky or what?
I guess it all depends on how you identify on track. They're spending the money. They're putting out plenty of the baits using different methods. Probably the biggest issue it comes down to is how you identify what is success, and they're putting out. They really need to my mind, identify success in reducing the size of the area where fire ants are found in southeast Queensland, and identify the success of putting out the baits relative to not doing anything at all or relative to other methods. So it all comes down to the review that was sort of released a few days ago is very much sort of based on their method, and so it's how if you identify it in terms of the methods they're doing. It was given an amber light, so it said that it's kind of going okay, but there's definitely big sort of gaps, and one of the biggest gap is probably they've only actually sort of put assess 71% of the area that has been sort of impacted by fire ants. So with eradication, we're talking about 100% removal, and they're running behind by 30%. So that to me is one of their measures of success, to say they're kind of 50 above 50%. But yeah, it's very much sort of based on what is within their system to measure success. Eradication, it's not there. We're still seeing increases in fire ants. Sort of their area is increasing. So that to me is a example of where the system isn't working.
So that that when they say it's on track, it might be on track of spending money, but it's not on track though of eradicating the fire ant. In a very one or two words, yes or no, will they ever eradicate the fire ant?
No.
So then why are they spending so much money on this?
That's a question that's bigger than you and I think, Mike, to put that. But I think they have an eradication program, and there is an element of trying to say that they are actually doing something, but it's in a way which hasn't been fully open. And this is one of the things that has the assessments that came out of this review, is to say that they're not basing their sort of their work actually on scientific knowledge. They don't clearly articulate what they're basing their successes and their failures and how that is relative to the current environment. They base a lot of this information on what happened in the US, which is fine, but they also need to be aware that we have to get evidence in southeast Queensland, and currently we just don't have any scientific evidence that is available that is able to be critically assessed. Being open, honest, transparent, these are things that are fundamental when you are trying to bring not just a small area of 1,000 hectares, but now over in southeast Queensland, one of the major growth areas in Australia, trying to bring the whole community on within this project. It's fundamental that the information is out there so it can be fully criticised for good and for bad, rather than actually keeping it enclosed and not actually identifying what is actually working well and what isn't, and identifying clearly that there is no actual evidence that we're not even close to eradication. We're still, the size of the area fire ants are found is still increasing, at a natural rate, about 4 to 8 kilometres a year. That is the natural rate of fire ant expansion. So these things need to be fully identified and just acknowledged, rather than actually saying we're moving towards, we're trying to eradicate by 2032 by the time the Olympics come in. It's not a scientifically sort of feasible option, in my opinion.
It's funny how we have a big event and that's the end point. We have to get there before that. We have to stamp on every bloody ant there is and slap it down with hot water. Hey, tell me about this though, because it is very serious, but I always find it interesting. Why the hell do they have that organised, for the Olympics? That's what it is. I think the Olympics 2032.
Yes.
Yeah, so why are they picking the Olympics to get rid of all the fire ants? Are they going to sabotage a long distance race or something that we're in?
Well, that's the thing. They could well do that. We wait to see. But it is a significant point. But yeah, again, it's a political endpoint, it's a social endpoint, but from a scientific point, there is no sort of feasibility in doing that. And a good example of the feasibility has come recently, where a similar species called the tropical fire ant has actually been eradicated from the Tiwi Islands. It is, this is an area which is about 1,500 hectares, and it is actually the third largest eradication of ants in the world. And it took 22 years to do, from 1,500 hectares on an island. And that is also in context of the tropical fire ant, which is also very similar to the red imported fire ant. It's a bit smaller, but it has a very similar behaviour in terms of it stings, it bites. Lots of individuals come out and cause major sort of potentially sort of issues with humans. It's actually been found between Darwin and Catherine, and it's been there for about 100 years. So we can eradicate small pockets relatively effectively, and those pockets on the Tiwi Islands, that had a full commitment of the people who live on the islands. It had all the rangers involved. It was actually identified as a fantastic sort of way of engaging the community, because in order to eradicate the tropical fire ants, they had to go to individual properties over 50 times over that period to make sure that each individual nest was removed, and that those nests didn't come back after 2 years. We've seen for the red imported fire ants in southeast Queensland doing aerial drops of baits that have been reduced from 6 times to 4 times. There's no scientific evidence to show that having aerial bait drops 4 times in a particular area will successfully eradicate fire ants from southeast Queensland. So we've got a really nice example where eradication has occurred and what is required to do it in multiple contexts now. We've had the eradication from fire ants initially in Port of Brisbane, but they've been, that was in a small area, about 9,800 hectares. We've got the eradication up on the Tiwi Islands, about 1,500 hectares. This is where eradication works. And it works when you go in hard and you go in very early when the ants have been found there. You can't wait for 20, 30 or more years to actually allow them to get to a point where they're taken over a massive area of land and expect to be able to eradicate them.
Tell me this, where to from here with the program? What do you realistically take away what should be done? What do you think is going to happen? Do we continue this? And if they're aiming for 2032, can you imagine the sweat on the brows in 2031?
Yes, it's going to be an interesting lead up to the Olympics, that's for sure. But we can kind of see what's happening in southeast Queensland, because the eradication strategy has been divided into an eradication zone and a suppression zone. So this is also a large component of southeast Queensland is under what's called FAST. It's a Fire Ant Suppression Task Force, and the suppression is essentially an area where local governments, local landholders, local businesses have to manage fire ants by themselves. And that in that area is where we can sort of, in many cases, see where this program is moving to. So it's actually going to be a management of the fire ants, and that is done on a council level, on a business level, rather than actually a biosecurity level. So the level of impact is going to be at a smaller scale.
It's and they've spent over $1 billion. It's incredible.
Yep, and the thing is, particularly even with suppression programs, that the actual the amount of money to try and suppress them and trying to keep them at low levels is not going to go away. We can eradicate them, and even if we attempt to keep the fire ants suppressed, that's going to cost money. It's not, and either way, it's to remove an invasive species or to identify it as something that we don't want to expand out. It is not going to be cheap.
No, it's pork barreling, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, or porkies. And I referred to government to our previous guest as a lump of lard that just rolls over the top of people. I don't know if they've ever used government in that context, lump of lard, government, but it probably sums it up magnificently. And that's just my comment. I know you have to be a bit careful, which I admire you for that. And you show.
Well, we can use the same acronym as LOL, as laugh out loud, as lump of lard. So we can just say LOL. And so we can.
If somebody wants to find out more about you, Professor Nigel Andrew, or more about these pesky creatures, these aliens, how do they do that?
Well, the simple way is probably Google Nigel Andrew and fire ants, and I seem to get up into the relatively high up into the search, sort of that way. So that's probably the easiest way to start. So
you're Mr. Ant-Man. They can make a movie about you.
That's right.
Nigel, thank you so much for your time. I will practice that word again because I get it every time.
Well, again, it's similar to etymology, which is the actual meaning of words, and so it's
terrible. Anyway, Scotch time later. Professor Nigel Andrew, thank you so much. This is the Country Telegraph.
Southeast Australia is set for a burst of wintry weather with rain, brisk winds and snow down to low levels in the coming days. This is all due to a cold front. We can see it here moving up from the Southern Ocean during Wednesday, and through the morning showers will increase for parts of southeast South Australia, Western Victoria and Western Tasmania. As that cold front sweeps over, rain will build across southern Victoria as well as much of Tasmania, and behind the cold front we do see a shift to very icy southerly winds that will bring a real chill to the air from Thursday and also into Friday. So having a look at Thursday, we see that cold front moving out towards the east and a low pressure system developing over the southern Tasman Sea. Showers increase across southeastern parts of New South Wales, and further south you will see small hail, including around the Melbourne area, and still very cold southwesterly winds pushing through. And those winds are forecast to intensify overnight Thursday and into Friday, particularly around the Bass Strait, and we will be issuing severe weather warnings for damaging winds, and those will cover parts of Tasmania, eastern Victoria and southeastern parts of New South Wales, so do keep an eye on those warnings. Through the day though, those weather systems move out over the Tasman Sea. Showers contract to southern coastal areas, but still cold southerly winds pushing through, and we will see conditions easing and clearing as we head in towards this weekend. So how much rainfall are we expecting? Well, out to Friday night, we can see most of the rainfall is forecast across southern Victoria and western Tasmania. Western Tasmania could see areas of more than 50 millimetres of rainfall to Friday night, and for Victoria, the highest rainfall total is actually expected across Melbourne's eastern suburbs, out towards the Dandenong Ranges and down towards southern parts of Gippsland. For elevated areas, most of this will actually fall as snow, but for inland parts, particularly out towards Adelaide as well, we really only will see up to about 5 millimetres of rainfall. So unfortunately, these areas do look to miss out on the bulk of the rainfall this time. Now, in terms of snow, We can see as this cold front moves through on Wednesday night into Thursday, these blue colours indicate very cold air moving up from deep in the Southern Ocean, and the snow level will drop quite significantly. For Tasmania, snow is possible above about 500 metres. Victoria, that's 600 metres, which does mean possible flurries for the Grampians as well as the Macedon Ranges. For alpine areas of Victoria and New South Wales, snow is possible above about 700 metres, including for the alpine ski resorts. And for New South Wales, snow is possible above about 800 metres through the Blue Mountains. At this stage, we're not expecting blizzard conditions, but snow, ice and sleet can make travel conditions dangerous. So do keep across the latest forecast over the coming days if you are in elevated parts of the country. Now, looking at some of the temperatures more broadly across the region, Thursday will be the coldest day for many people of the year so far, including for Melbourne, Canberra as well as Adelaide. Temperatures struggling to climb into the teens for many places, and for some areas single digits are possible, particularly across elevated parts of the country. Now, heading into Friday, we do see some of that cold air pushing up into northern New South Wales. Temperatures gradually starting to rise across Tasmania, Victoria, as well as South Australia. And then to Saturday, we gradually start to see the temperatures climbing yet again, and we are looking at a settled and milder weekend to come. So with the first burst of cold weather so far this year to impact much of southeastern Australia, do keep across the latest forecast and possible warnings over the next few days. You can find these on our website and app. Follow us on social media, and as always, please stay safe.
And that's it. Looks a bit cool, although my football team's playing in Darwin against the Gold Coast on the Gold Coast Suns on Saturday. It's going to be about 34 degrees and humid, about 94% humidity. Whoa, it's going to be a hot one. Hope so too. Hope the Saints keep going on. Great to have your company too, by the way, today. Full house. Fire ants. Man, oh man, government's got that wrong, haven't they? And I shouldn't say it, but they have got it wrong. And they just won't listen. This lump of lard called government won't listen. And also some great videography in the middle of the show. Just absolutely fantastic. That's it for the show today. We'll catch you same time, same bale of hay tomorrow. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your neighbours.